Preparation has been put in, the lineup is set, and the anticipation has reached an all-time high. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, as Split Second Broadcasting brings you coverage of the season opener of the 12th season of the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series, as tonight we get the season kicked off with the GLR Daytona 250, powered by Split Second Broadcasting. Last week we covered the duels here at Daytona. The respective winners will start up at the front of the field. Drivers will start mid-pack, rear of the field, and look to cut their way through, all with the hopes of capturing the first checkered flag of the season. But they don't call this the World Center of Racing for nothing, because to get a checkered flag here, you have to earn it. It comes down to skill, it comes down to timing, and maybe just a little bit of luck. As I'm Seth Cole alongside of Jack Mitchell, and Jack, we kind of, in the racing world, start with the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. It always seems to have that big race feel and usually leads about to exciting finishes to kick off the festivities. Packed house here tonight in the stands, a packed field on pit road ready to take the green flag. It's going to be really interesting to see what the different type of agendas are going to be as soon as the flagman waves the green.
Yeah, there's a different energy that's kind of buzzing in the air once you arrive at Daytona for the start of the season. This is honestly my favorite racetrack. I love coming to Daytona. I love seeing all the energy on the racetrack, and all these drivers are probably ready to get going here as we're already getting underway with the pace laps.
It's going to be 41 cars strong, as last week in pole day qualifying, Hunter Madalinas got his number 7, the fastest lap of the evening. He's going to share the front row with second fastest in pole day qualifying, Jared Darling. Our two respective duel winners will make up row number 2. Christopher Heller watched all mayhem happen in the rearview mirror as he took the first duel victory. Josh Morgan, in a thrilling photo finish, took the second duel victory. They're back in the second row. Rest of the starting lineup set by where they finished their respective duels. Zachary Henry will share row number 3 alongside of Brent Kingcott. Daniel Selway in row 4 alongside of Jared Duty, and your top 10 completed with Justin Vandermarl and Matt Durr. Row 6 is going to house Gavin Fitzgerald alongside of the 42 of Aspen Martin. Row 7 with James Wagner and Tony Manji. John Linday and Kurt Gibson, they're back in row 8. Row 9 will find Travis Hanby and Cy Jackson. Your top 20 completed with Logan Hardy and Andrew Parr. Rod Fastnow starting mid-pack in row 11 alongside of Elliott Henderson. Ashton Lawson and Dominic Wright make up your 12th row. Row 13 will be Robin Durr and Jeremy Pienta, who was really strong in his dual race. Noah Morgan, Eric Kemp back in row 14 with the top 30 completed with Nicholas Caressel and Jackson Sims. Row 16 will be Blair Neabone alongside of Shane Neiswanger. Row 17, Matthew Weeks and Aiden DuPont. Lewis Woodall, Kyle Cooper, they're back in row 18 with the rest of the field made up with Spencer Owens, who won this event 1 season ago, James Shiflett, Hunter Brittle, and Tony Allison. Flagman's got the flagman in the air. The Daytona 250 is green. Season 12 is underway. One thing that we saw in the dual races, one group, duel number 1, weren't all that keen, all that anxious on bump drafting, push drafting. Second duel race, there was a lot of pushing and shoving to make their way up to the front of the field. It's a long ways to go in this one, Jack, 100 laps, so maybe very difficult for these drivers with that adrenaline pulsing here after receiving that green flag to kind of rein those horses back and realize it's a long ways to go to that checkered flag.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to do whatever you can to kind of rein in that energy, as you just said, as we have some cars already making some moves to the low side of the racetrack. That'll be the quicker way around Daytona, but might not always be the side that gets the best runs here as this race progresses.
Yeah, to your point, you see the 16 of Christopher Heller second in line there, that Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet, or actually correction, it's a Dark Horse Mustang. He, for the most part, spent most of that first duel race up in that middle groove, up on that outside line, and was able to pace the field, but will tuck in line behind Hunter Madalinas. They'll line up their blue ovals in first and second, leave it side by side for the third spot. That's the Chevy on the bottom of Zachary Henry. Up top, outside pole sitter in Jared Darling. movement there out of the 35 of our second duel winner, Josh Morgan, as they thunder their way across the start-finish line to complete lap number 2. On to lap number 3. Last week, he was up here in the broadcast booth with me. Today, he's down on pit road. We're going to bring in Ross Brockman. And Ross, I can only imagine what the sensation feeling is there down on pit road, as you know, the crew members realizing that there is every possibility this race could trend green in the second half of this race, and the money stop could be a difference maker into who's winning this Daytona 250 and who isn't.
Yeah, a handful of these guys I was racing with last night, and they were talking about what they're doing tonight, and they kind of were all over the place as far as what the strategy is. I think there's some concern about some of these drivers and where they started with the duels being farther in the back, and just kind of trying to figure out how they're going to make their way through. And I think one of the ways they were saying is pit road. As you can see right now, it's kind of singled, calm as far as you can be with two lanes battling side by side. But I think a lot of these guys are thinking, well, if we can save a little bit of fuel, we can maybe take less on a pit stop, maybe do 2 tires, maybe no tires a few times tonight. You could do this race potentially on 2 pit stops if you get a caution or 2, but if we run green, you're going to have to do 3. So about 30 laps on a fuel run, so we'll have to take a look. We saw last week, if you're leading the pack, you maybe can't go all 30, so we'll have to see if Madalinas is able to lead this field for a while. He might be one that has to pit a lap or 2 before most everyone else does.
Able to get a little bit of an idea inside the minds of the drivers. What was the general consensus in terms of the drivers in what they felt last week, with only half the field, only 20 drivers in the respective duels, now having to prepare for a thundering herd of 40 race cars? We talked about this last week. Entirely different surge of energy when you've got a big pack like this as opposed to what they experienced last week in the respective duel races.
The track position is the biggest thing in those duels. We had not only just half the field size, but a lot of incidents that ultimately meant if you survived, you gained a bunch of track position. We're up in that lead pack. So some of these drivers that got caught up in those incidents, I see guys like Nicewanger, Matthew Weeks, guys that have won in this league that are farther in the back. It's going to take some time to get up there because you have so many more drivers to pass, and it is tough once you get rolling.
Jack, we talked about the different agendas of drivers as soon as the green flag dropped. The field is kind of split off into 2 respective packs. Back around the 18th position where you see Matt Durr, John Linde. They're the trailing cars of this group. Then you go maybe another 7 to 8 car lengths back to a side-by-side of the second group with Andrew Parr, Jeremy Pienta, and others. Don't know if necessarily maybe something happened that we didn't see that caused maybe a little bit of a stack up and caused that group to lose touch with the lead pack, or are these all drivers that are saying, you know what, let's not have that major energy up here with a big 40 car field. Let's maybe separate a little bit, still keep ourselves in the conversation, but not put ourselves in a bad situation where we may end up tearing up equipment in the early going of this race.
Well, I feel like somebody, what adds credence to the fact that there might have been an incident that we might have missed is the fact that Hunter Brittle is way off the pace right now. He's the only car that has so far completely lost the draft, running in the very back of the field. You can see right there, all by himself. Can't really make out any damage on that car just yet, but I am curious to see if something went down that we were not aware of, because, again, just by yourself, that's the last place you want to be under green flag conditions at Daytona.
Not any benefit of draft, and I think it's pretty safe to say that if he continues to run by his lonesome where he's currently positioned, it will not take very long for this big pack, this front pack that has about 18 drivers in it, to reel him in and put him a lap down. As still on that outside line, Jared Darling leading the charge. He's got the 35 of Josh Morgan right in there behind him, and then the 42 of Aspen Martin. A lot of drivers that we saw do really well in their respective duel races, reaping the benefit of track position, and at this point in time, just kind of trying to maintain it. Is now a move up to the top side. That's the 53, I believe, of Jared Duda, who's now going to pick up fellow Blue Oval Jared Darling and see if they can make something happen up there on the top.
A bit of manufacturer alliance, a handful of Fords making their way to the high side of the racetrack, and this is where you can start seeing those runs from the upper side start to come into play.
Hunter Madalinas currently out in front, showing the way. 1 season ago, granted they were in the trucks back in season 11, have now made their way over to the Xfinity mod here for season 12, but he got the season started off pretty well, started 11th and finished 7th in last year's season opener here at Daytona. And of course had that lightning fast lap time that got him the pole position for this Daytona 250, and has so far led all completed 8 laps. But there's a lot of other drivers that have had good numbers at this racetrack that have gone to victory lane at Daytona. One of them, the 37 of Elliott Henderson. Now, right now, Elliott is currently running quite a ways back. He is, I believe, one of the trailing cars in this lead pack in the 18th position, a former 2-time winner here at Daytona. Keep an eye on him. He was up there in the conversation in the duel race before he ended up getting caught up in some late race theatrics. So not exactly with the benefit of good starting track position, but when you've got that kind of keen sense of super speedway racing, a lot of times starting mid-pack rear of the field, it doesn't really phase a driver because they always have a backup plan in how to gain that track position back, whether it be just the drivers you're working with or maybe even pit road strategy.
That's why they always say at a racetrack like Daytona, if you're in it, you can win at starting position. You know, it matters, but everyone always, as he said, has some sort of plan in mind. As well, you're talking, Jared Duda has taken the lead of the race. He made the pass around the outside and then went low to block Madalinas there, and has that run of momentum on the bottom of the racetrack. Look up the Fords up there as well. All the Fords were kind of working together and talked about that manufacturer alliance. So far, the Duda in front, though, and now we'll see if the rest of the Fords can maybe try to challenge back on the high side.
Pretty impressive here for the Blue Ovals. Right now occupying all of the top 5 positions with Duda, Madalinas, Heller, Darling, and Morgan right now. Zachary Henry, that Chevrolet on the inside, trying to break up the Ford party. It was interesting, too, talking about last week, Jared Duda last season, it seemed like whenever we went to a short track, he was one of the favorites. All the other racetracks, he was competitive, but didn't really necessarily have him as a driver who's going to be up there dominating. Very interesting to see him out in front pacing at a super speedway, so might find him as a jack of all trades, so to speak, coming into the respective races this season. Very competitive schedule, a lot of interesting racetracks that these drivers will have to deal with for the regular season until we determine the 10 playoff drivers at regular season's end. But I am noticing here as well a little bit more movement out of these race cars, specifically those up in the second lane, migrating about a half groove higher as they enter into the corner. Of course, the track conditions here in Florida, the sun beating down this racetrack, going to be a little bit slick as the tires wear down. There you see triple digits for the track temperature, and of course as well, as the cars start to lose more and more fuel, the back end of the cars get lighter. So not surprising to see these machines dancing around through the corners 13 laps in.
Speaking of dancing around, it looked like Josh Morgan was kind of struggling to hold on to his position up there on the high side, and there's a car that goes low. I thought we were going to go 3 wide for just a moment. Got enough room to make 3 wide work, but 4 wide, there's not really a whole lot of space beyond that, so might get a little bit sketchy if those moves start to be made, and I feel like it's more likely we see those moves get made as we get longer to these green flag runs.
More momentum on that inside line there. We saw 54 of Justin Vandermarl, 24 of Tony Maggi, 14 Gavin Fitzgerald, all lined up. We're on board here with Ashton Lawson in the 26, and look at that. Whoa, man, almost got into the back of James Wagner just ahead. They'll shuffle the 57 into the middle, but that accordion effect where you have to lift, getting that big toe down the straightaway, nearly just led to contact around the 12th position.
I might as well have spoken it into existence there. We immediately went 3 wide, and now they're trying to get themselves back in line. You gotta be careful. The 57 almost wasn't clear. That's usually where we see most of the disasters on the draft tracks, is when 2 cars end up fighting for the same piece of real estate at the same time, and they both end up there at once, and that leads to 1 car going around, and that can be all kinds of chaos on a track like this.
Put the sucker hole. He was running in the 12th position at the time, was James Wagner. Has been able to slot his way back to the inside line, dropped back to the 20th position. Ross, I'm seeing more and more drivers migrating down to the inside line here, only a handful staying committed to the top side. How close would we be to these drivers preparing for green flag pit stops?
Well, I think if anyone was maybe considering it now, that would be a really, you know, a fun strategy to watch. I would love to see that because it would be something different, but I think that you're going to want to stay in this group, the larger pack, as much as you can to keep up the speed. Right now you could potentially pit and basically make it on one more stop, but I think that you're going to want to go this, take this one as far as you can here to start the race, which is another, at least 15 laps away from seeing the whole field come down. But some of the drivers in the back, we've had a couple that have lost the draft. Some of them have worked together to kind of get in a group themselves. They may have to pit a little bit earlier just because they are obviously on the throttle a little bit more than this pack, but I think there's a lot of them that are trying to get down to the bottom, maybe just to save fuel, so that way they can go maybe a little bit farther when this pit stop comes. But yeah, still another 10 to 12 laps away from when I think scheduled stops will start.
Interesting you bring up that group that has lost this draft. There's about 4 drivers all together back there, and one of those drivers is the 23 of Spencer Owens, who 1 season ago by 2 1,000ths of a second in a photo finish was barely able to edge Elliott Henderson for the first victory of the season. He's back there with James Shiflett, Lewis Woodall, and Blair Neobones. So 17 laps in here, Jack, and already there's about a half dozen drivers that would love to see a caution to save their race, because if we continue to trend green, there's not a whole lot of opportunity with a track being as draft reliant as Daytona to get back into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. You need all the draft, or you're kind of working the car all by yourself and not really getting a whole lot of help from anybody surrounding you, as we see with this pack of 4 cars right here. Also, to that point, Hunter Brittle's still looking like he's all by himself on the racetrack and dead last right now. So he, more than anybody, I feel like, would want a caution.
Hunter Brittle, I think, is right now only about 10 seconds ahead of the race leaders, as there you see, all by his lonesome, making his way down the back straightaway and into turn 3. More than likely, I was going to say, I think that the field, the leaders, are almost now onto the same straightaway as he's going into 3. They were just coming off of turn number 2, so it's not going to take them very long to reel him in and put him a lap down, as Jared Duda continues to show the way over Hunter Madalinas and Christopher Heller. This battle for 4th place, it continues to remain side by side, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed right now. I thought as soon as I saw Jared Darling and Gavin Fitzgerald out there all by their lonesome, they were gonna start fading back. They've been able to hold serve with just 2 cars up there on the top against about nearly 7, 8, 9 drivers lined up on that inside line.
They're really making it work here on the outside, but would like to have a bit of a challenge for the lead at some point, and right now there isn't really a whole lot of gaps for them to insert their cars into. Maybe a little bump from behind there from Fitzgerald.
Right behind him, now they've got some numbers. That's Elliott Henderson. We were talking about him. He was back around, I think, 18th position when we last checked in. He's cracked the top 10. He's now battling side by side with Brent Kincott. That'd be for 7th place. Last year's runner-up finisher, making his way towards the top 5. This surge is going to allow Jared Darling to now draw a bead up alongside of the 16 of Christopher Heller, and may end up getting more depending on how tight they can keep the draft here down the back straightaway. Love this shot, looking all the way down the length of the backstretch here at Daytona. A lot of times it can kind of be misleading where you think the cars, they're perfectly stationary, lined up nose to tail, but you can see the little side-to-side wiggle. They're still fighting with these race cars, even in a straight line.
Yeah, they're looking for every inch of the racetrack they can possibly get, trying to get every advantage they can possibly get, and that really depends on specifically where you are, as Duda with a little bit of a moment at the front that let him slip a little bit. That could allow Darling into the race lead. It does for the time being. And the bottom rescue that momentum again.
Darling started this race from the outside of the front row, did not lead a lap up to this point after Madalenas from the pole position took command, but now with the help from a couple of other Mustangs behind, Fitzgerald and Elliott Henderson clear to the lead, says thank you very much, and jumps down to that double yellow line.
Darling to the point. I thought that Fitzgerald in the 14 was trying to go to the low side, but there was not enough room. He was not completely clear, so he has to stay in line on the top for now. He's got a good push from behind as well.
The driver I've been keeping an eye on since the drop of the green flag that started this race pretty deep in the field. He finished 4th here last season, would go on to win the championship. Matthew Weeks, he's just now cracked up into the top 15. Last time by was scored in the 14th position. So we're starting to see a lot of drivers who didn't have the benefit of good starting track position slowly, patiently, methodically working their way forward. On board here with the 11, looking up ahead to Kyle Cooper in the 73.
These cars getting closer and closer to that lap car. Wordle in the 10 is now, I think, on the same straightaway as them again, and that could be impactful on the front of the field if he ends up meeting them at the wrong time and place.
Really seen outside of when Wagner got put in the middle. We haven't really seen 3 wide yet in this one. And we've seen drivers in that middle line, the outside line technically here, have to use a lot of the racetrack as they slide up into the entry of the corner. You even see right there, goes up, straddles the white hash marks as Gavin Fitzgerald and Elliott Henderson. Will they need that space when they come up on Hunter Brittle if indeed he moves up into that 3rd lane as outside line prevails again, this time for the split-second broadcasting Dark Horse Mustang, and as soon as Fitzgerald gets cleared, he jumps to the bottom. Ross, I'm going to bring you in here because this is kind of similar to what we saw in the duel races. As soon as that car in the outside line gets cleared, they jump to the bottom. Why are they not staying up there with that outside line where the momentum clearly seems to be?
It just seems like once you get clear, it's the safest spot to just hold your position, because it does seem like that top lane just continues to move forward every time we saw Fitzgerald move down, and then all of a sudden here comes Henderson now rolling the top. So lap car coming around the outside here will be a little tense for the top lane, but yeah, I think that part of it is just it's the safest spot to be, you know, that you can slide down there and hold your position where at any moment that top lane can kind of just lose all energy, and next thing you know, you lose 10 positions. So I think that's kind of the thought, the security blanket of that bottom lane.
Elliott Henderson, he'll get pushed to the race lead, courtesy of the 2 of Cy Jackson. And now you've got Fords lined up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that inside line. From Henderson back to Heller, a Toyota now leading the outside line and looking to get some help from Kirk Gibson in the 83, 3 wide up the middle. Here comes Kyle Cooper. He's got help from Matthew Weeks. Matt Durr stuck on the outside line, maybe a kiss to the safer barrier.
That was awfully close, but Matt Durr now is going to be on the receiving end of this unfortunate move to the high side, as he's going to lose all that momentum, has to get in line right ahead of another car, and it's going to take him really out of the top 10. He was running about inside the top 10, top 12 cars here to start this race. That's going to set him back quite a lot in terms of track position.
3 Toyotas working together there on that outside line, and the Chevrolet of Cooper trying to see if they can fight against the Fords on the inside line. The 4th car in line there we talked about, and Matthew Weeks in the 11. Ross, I think you've got an update on him.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he was the most vocal so far through this run, just making sure, you talked about Weeks just working his way through the field. He was talking about drivers being able, when he was on the inside line, to make sure you hold the yellow line. If not, he said he was going to pass them. So I think there was a couple drivers in the back that he was able to gain positions on because they weren't able to hold that yellow line, and then jumped up to the outside lane and was just kind of actually chatting in the total group chat with all drivers about how that top lane was working. So very vocal for the past champion, and moving towards the front. We're only a couple laps away from pit stops here, guys. I think we're going to see him soon.
To keep an eye on those hands potentially out the window down the back straightaway. And we've seen so many times in the past, Jack, it doesn't matter what type of a simulator you're running. When it comes to super speedway racing, yes, the double wide, three wide action up above the double yellow line is certainly exciting to observe. But what happens between the entry to pit road to the exit of pit road can play just as much a factor into who's even going to be in the conversation for the checkered flag. These drivers have got to have themselves prepared. The communication has got to be on point depending on who's coming to pit road on what lap. We've seen traffic jams when it comes to green flag pit stops at super speedways.
Absolutely, and like you said, the communication basically has to begin right here and now. These drivers, once they get to the backstretch, basically is the ideal time to let everybody else know that they are going to make their way on the pit road. So you've got to get the communication going early, and then you have to have the right strategy as well. And it's got to be mistake-free. You cannot make any kind of mistakes on pit road. It's going to set you back a ton if you do, and that can really unravel the race if you end up having a longer pit stop than normal, or maybe there's some kind of traffic jam that leads to contact on pit road.
Talk about drivers on the move since the start of this race. 28th lap in the books, and some of the biggest movers include your race leader Elliott Henderson, up 21 positions from his original spot. Matthew Weeks, he's gained 23 positions. Kyle Cooper up 23 positions as well. And how about the 47 of Tony Allison? He's moved up 25 spots since the start of this race. I believe he actually started shotgun on the field. So really impressive what a number of these drivers have been able to do. I think Dale Jr. used to call it seeing the air, seeing where the momentum was. These drivers have been able to do just that and make forward progress on the eves of these upcoming green flag pit stops. Allison now moves from the top to the bottom, right in front of the 18 of Matthew Durr. You see the 10 of Hunter Brittle. Yes, he's fallen a lap down, but he is now merged in with this group, so he'll be up to speed with them. He is the only car one lap down, so he would be in line for the lucky dog should a caution come out, provided he doesn't get involved in the wreck that would bring out the yellow. And I would have to assume that he would be coming to pit road when a bunch of these leaders do. But Ross, I'll ask you this question. With him spending all that time by himself, all that fuel used up, and not the benefit of draft to save anything, can he make it as far as a bunch of these drivers that have had the benefit of the draft this long?
I wouldn't think so. I think obviously you're going to be running wide open all by yourself. So I would think that he's one of the early pitters here as far as the lead pack here because of that situation of being a lap down. But ultimately, everybody's been running a little bit farther than I thought here so far. We're to lap 31 now and haven't heard anything as far as any strategy on the radio. A lot of keeping the cards close to the vest. I think we're going to hear a bunch of them start mentioning it as they're coming out of four, just to make sure that a lot of their competitors don't know when they do it. But still nothing this time.
Jack, as we see, you talked about the possibility manufacturer alliance here earlier on in this race. We've got 6 blue ovals lined up nose to tail in this inside line. I think it maybe be a little bit surprising if we don't see all of them come to pit road together on the same lap.
Yeah, and I mean, just the way they're all running on the track right now, not just the blue ovals, but the field as a whole, there are so many drivers that have migrated towards the bottom of the racetrack. It almost feels like they're gearing up to go to pit road at any given moment. And yeah, there's almost nobody on the high side from this camera shot right now. Everybody's making their way towards the bottom, single file, not really pushing for any position. That's basically the smoking gun that these drivers are getting ready to make their way on the pit road.
There's a trio of Toyotas up there in the form of Cy Jackson, Kurt Gibson, and the defending champion Matthew Weeks. Here comes Jared Darling to pit road, seemingly by himself of the lead group. There's a couple more behind him also coming in. Looks like the 47 of Tony Allison is coming in. Hunter Brittle is pitting. And then a few more behind, a couple more Fords and a Chevrolet. That is Nicholas Caressel, Eric Kempf, and Andrew Parr.
A little bit surprising. That kind of goes against what we were just talking about with all the Fords pitting together.
A number of those drivers looked like they were a little hot coming into pit road, and it looks like already the race officials, the speeding police, are out in full force here in Daytona Beach, Florida. Too fast entering for the one of Jared Darling, as well as the 47 of Tony Allison. And here come a bunch more. Look at him fanning out, trying to give room.
Ooh.
Oh, we're 6 wide coming in.
Everybody eager to get their way on the pit road, but this is what we were talking about earlier. It's got to be mistake-free.
Andrew Parr hit with a black flag, too fast entering. And we'll see if anybody from this group will get hit by the speeding police, as it was like highway traffic making their way to the commitment line. You see there the pole sitter, Hunter Madalinas, overshot his stall, had to back up. Precious seconds will be lost.
And the way some of these drivers flew into their pit box, I think they're pretty lucky that when you go into your pit box, these cars don't have any mass, because there could have been a lot of disasters there, but you still got to avoid your wall. And as we were just talking about, you still got to make sure you don't overshoot your pit box. But one of these drivers so far, this is, I think, should be the last handful. These 4 are the last handful to make their way on the pit road.
We saw for the most part, looks like everybody's going with 4 tires and fuel, and they're using up all the good in those Goodyears. You saw there, Ashton Lawson had to hit the brakes to avoid running the back of Zachary Henry. Brett Kingcott, he used up all of that right rear as he locked them up for the preparation of pit road entry. Looks like we've got roughly about maybe a half dozen drivers here in this final group, as opposed to the over 24 we had on pit road the lap prior. And you can see how that big group have really spaced out after leaving pit lane. That's Elliott Henderson, Jared Duda, the first 2 cars, then a long ways back to a group of 7. Gonna take some time for everybody to get back organized up. This green flag pit stop cycle has completely broken up the field. Daniel Selway in the 91 hit with a black flag for speeding. So that's about 4 or 5 drivers, their first green flag pit stops of the season, going to warrant penalties, and that will continue to add to the accumulating list of drivers that would love to see a caution flag come out to save their race.
Save their race, it would stack up the whole field back together again. I feel like that's kind of what some drivers are, especially hoping for when you consider the way that there were, I think it was Darling that came on the pit road early it wasn't completely by himself, but we thought a lot more cars were going to go on the pit road with him. I think he was the biggest loser when it comes to everybody on pit road, because he went by himself when we were expecting a big group, and then he got hit with a black flag.
See Hunter Madalinas, looks like our pole sitter is going to cycle around to around, looks like P7 for the 7 car. Remember, he was, I believe, 3rd place when they came down pit road, had that slight overshoot in his stall, and it cost him a couple of spots after everything cycled around. He came out behind Tony Manji, who was actually behind him when the pit stops began, as well as Kyle Cooper, who's been able to move his way up into the 3rd position, the highest running of the Chevys. Ross, the pit stop cycle completed. We saw a number of drivers get hit with speeding penalties. How much emphasis, how much preparation was put into green flag pit stops here tonight? Did anybody think we'd get to this point and have to make these stops under green?
Well, I definitely think that's the last thing you practice. You spend, last week we had the duels. We knew we weren't going to have a green flag pit stop in them. We had practice sessions before the duels. This week before Daytona and tonight, of course. But so you coming down to pit road, I know that the pit entry is definitely a little more unique compared to maybe some past seasons here for Daytona. So I think the line maybe moved a little bit, and that's something that maybe some of these drivers got caught up with. But I'm totally impressed with the amount of drivers that came down in that large group, how they're all not only able to get down and not run into each other coming down to pit road, but sometimes that just gets you all mixed up as to where your pit box is and trying to find it. So it just really kind of mixed up this field. We've seen this years past at the 250 here, where we've had drivers, hit the green flag pit stops and some of them not, and it gets these groups kind of spread out in different spots. And this is where the fun begins. Now you're going to see these drivers try to push a little bit more, try to figure out the strategy of maybe they need to save to make sure they can hit the next window. You're going to have different agendas in each of these groups. I think it'll be fun to see how this maps out. I think lap 65 is the magic number. If you can get to lap 65 on this next run here, then you potentially will be able to make it to the end without another pit stop. So that's the number right now, lap 65.
The field, as our producer Jeff Johnson showed us all the way through the different groups, there are about 6 different distinct packs here around Daytona. About 11 drivers up in this lead group, then about maybe another dozen drivers back in the second pack, currently being led by Nicholas Caressel. They might actually be able to get a little bit of a tow off the back of Matthew Weeks and catch up. Then there's a third pack you see there coming out of turn number 2, being led by the 00 of Aiden DuPont. Actually, correction, that's the 33 of Dominic Wright. And then there's another pack further behind them. There's the pack being led by Aiden DuPont. Then there's another 2 other packs behind them, all just trying to stay lined up, try to get lap times here to, if for no other reason, for some of those trailing packs to stay on the tail end of the lead lap. If a caution potentially comes out, look at this run by the leader of the second pack, Nicholas Caressel.
Got a heck of a run on the top side of the racetrack, and that'll allow this pack to catch up to this one that has slightly more cars ahead of that. Actually, a lot more than slightly more cars, but nevertheless, that's really going to help these guys, and that's going to help everybody that are in those 2 packs that just ended up merging, because that's going to allow them to build up a little bit more speed, and they don't have to rely as much on, or they get to rely a little bit more on the draft. They don't have to use as much fuel, and then they can quickly make their way up towards the leaders, and that'll benefit them a ton.
Looks like they're going to reel in outside pole sitter Jared Darling, who was one of those drivers hit with the black flag for speeding on entry during the green flag pit stop cycle. And interesting that Ross gave us that magic number of lap 65. We saw just moments ago, Elliott Henderson, he was the leader once the cycle completed. He, of his own accord, went to the outside line, let some of the front runners by, slotted his way into 4th. Jared Duda then inherited the lead. He moved up to the outside line, let drivers by, and slotted into the 7th position. So it certainly looks like nobody really wants to lead. They don't want to use up all that fuel, so some gamesmanship to maybe get to that target lap 65 going up here in this lead group.
One other thing to consider as well, we haven't really talked about this in a little while, but looks like the darkness has kind of taken over this racetrack, maybe a bit of cloud cover or something, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the track temps start going down. Right now it's at 112 Fahrenheit, but at some point, now it's being put at 108, but yeah, at some point I wouldn't be surprised if the track starts going a little bit colder as the sun sets over Daytona.
I was going to say, you might as well be a weatherman, because the weather always seems to prove the weatherman wrong. As soon as you say that, they come out of turn 2 and the track's bathed in sunlight again. That's classic Florida for you.
The clouds are working against me here. There were parts of the racetrack that were looking like they were in a little bit more darkness, but yeah, as we make our way over this part of the racetrack, it looks like it's brightened up again here, so we might be dealing with the changing clouds going across the sun here at Daytona.
The execution on pit road has brought some new faces up to the front. Eric Kempf in the 63, now out in front, showing the way. Started this race from the 28th position, and now he is out in front, leading this race. Ashton Lawson right behind him, who started 23rd. He's up into 2nd, and we saw Nicholas Caressel actually snipe a lap lead moments ago. He was leading that 2nd group as they came up on the tail end of the lead pack. He's currently trying to hold down the 3rd position alongside of the lap car of Jared Darling. Zachary Henry trying to get to his inside. Some other names up here we haven't mentioned yet today. How about that 49 of Shane Neiswanger? He's the gray car, 3rd on the outside line. He started this race around the rear of the field as well. I believe he was 32nd off the grid, and now he's made his way up into the top 10. A lot of drivers taking advantage of pristine execution on and off pit road to gain track position and now put their name into the hat for this checkered flag. I've been keeping my eye on lap times here in regards to this front pack that currently has 17 lead lap cars in it. And that group behind them that's got about 7 or 8 drivers, the lap times are actually favoring the group of 7 back there. They are turning lap times anywhere from 2 to 3/10 of a second faster. And we've seen that before. When we talk about the energy of a pack, when there's a lot more drivers in a group, you would think more drivers, more draft, more speed. But no, with them being side by side drafting we call it, you're actually stalling out the respective lines and you're actually slowing each lane down. For that group back there, you see top of your screen, they're all single file nose to tail, so their straight line speed is a lot faster than the drivers up ahead. They're not out of it yet. If they can keep themselves disciplined and organized, within the next 10 laps, we could end up having ourselves a lead group of upwards of 25 drivers.
Yeah, they just have to keep their heads in it. Nobody has to be battling it for any position. Just realize that the longer that you run in a straight line, it helps you. There's still plenty of time in this race. We're only a few laps before halfway. There's still a lot of time for those drivers to catch up to this lead pack, and then they can race from there. But at this point, don't worry about trying to battle for track position. Don't worry about trying to be ahead of everybody else, and you'll eventually work your way up towards the front.
Niswanger now with the race lead, and right behind him, the defending champion of the series, Matthew Weeks. Third place is Chris Heller, who already has gone to victory lane in the Daytona duel last week. And then behind him, Matthew Durr, great run for the 18 car, as he currently occupies a spot inside of the top 5. Ashton Lawson currently in the 5th position, and he wants to go up there on the top side. This is kind of similar to what we saw to Ashton last week, where a lot of drivers wanted to ride. Ashton didn't want to ride. He wanted to make moves, and he's trying to do the same thing here up at the front of the field as we approach halfway. We've had a blast of having Ross Brockman down there on pit road with us. Had him here for the first half of this race, being our pit reporter, but he's having to step away from the microphone, and we're going to bring in another driver here that unfortunately we don't see out on the racetrack. Did not make the field here, but certainly knows what it's like to race in the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series. William Barbagelato. William, we welcome you in, and it looks like right now we're seeing a lot of gamesmanship in terms of drivers trying to save fuel to have enough to get to that target lap.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing me in here. Definitely wish I was out there with these guys. Looks like they're having a lot of fun. Obviously some strategy right now with the fuel situation. So yeah, I mean, wish I was out there with them. But yeah, a lot of games going on right now, a lot of strategy. So really interesting to see how this continues to play out.
Obviously, so far it's been nice to see this race green flag since the start. Got to see that cycle of green flag pit stops. But if you're a driver coming into this race, based of all the havoc that we saw back in the duel races, maybe preparing for an early caution or two, and then you're having to prepare for long green flag run execution on pit road, how difficult is it to kind of switch the strategy on a dime inside the cockpit?
Oh, it's really difficult. I mean, usually, for me at least, I go into these races with a set strategy. I like to hang around in the back until it starts to get chaotic. But, I mean, in a situation like this, we got 3 different groups of cars now. So especially those people in the back, I mean, they're going to try to find a way to make up as much ground as they can, which is really going to be difficult. And then if you're in this lead pack, I mean, with how civil things have seemed to go so far, you want to make sure you don't drop out of that. So I think, especially this next stop coming up in a smaller group like this, it's really important to execute everything that you do. I mean, for me, I didn't love to pit with a huge group because, you know, it can lead to a lot of jumbled mess when you're coming in. So I like to try to find some people I trusted, maybe get on the radio and see who I could work with well when I'm coming in. So sometimes you might want to run a lap longer than everyone else, or sometimes it might be worth it to come in with the group, because you don't want to get stranded, you know, coming out alone or only with a couple cars. So I think this is really important too, again, to stay in this lead group and not fall back and be one of these 2 other groups where you're, at this point, your race it's not over, but barring a caution, I mean, you're kind of stuck running where you are.
William brings up an interesting point there, Jack. We ended up seeing them 5, 6 wide, over 2 dozen drivers coming to pit road on the same lap during that first cycle. with the field a little bit broken up here and only about 20 drivers in this lead pack, there is a possibility, as he said, that there may be a more, I don't know, condensed communication maybe here of trying to see if you can come to pit road with a smaller pack and not with the massive amount of cars that we saw back during the first cycle.
Yeah, there might be a little bit more of a civilized entry on the pit road this time by. I mean, it was pretty civilized last time when they were about 5-6 wide making their way on the pit road. And as Ross said earlier, it is pretty impressive that they were all able to make their way on the pit road without any kind of major incidents, aside from a couple black flags, a couple of cars overshooting their pit stalls. But it seems like it would be a lot easier to handle with less cars in that group.
Okay, Nice Wonger still out in front. Doesn't look like he's all that concerned about being that lead car and having enough fuel to get to that target lap, as he currently has Matthew Weeks in tow. Nice Wonger, 1 season ago, brought it home in the 8th position after starting in 30th place. He didn't lead any laps in that race, but out in front here this evening in the Daytona 250. We're gonna step aside for a quick commercial break. Potential second round of pit stops coming up in the next 10 laps. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Daytona 250 on Split Second Broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
If you're buzzed and doing this to make yourself feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive.
More than halfway home in tonight's season opener, the Daytona 250, presented by Split Second Broadcasting, the inaugural race of season 12 of the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series, as Shane Nicewonger continues to show the way over the defending champion Matthew Weeks, Nicholas Carreso, Christopher Heller, and Matthew Durr, your current top 5. We're about potentially 10 laps away from the target lap for drivers to make their final pit stop to get home to the checkered flag. A lot of moving and jostling going on in the second and third packs as they try and get up here to the lead group that currently occupies roughly around 15 drivers. And Jack, right now we're starting to see maybe a little bit more aggressiveness out of this lead pack, as you saw right there off turn 4. Matthew Weeks on the bumper as Shane Nicewater got him a little squirrely.
Almost got a little too aggressive right there. That could have been our first caution of the day. Just managed to keep it in line, and these lap cars in the way. I feel like that's kind of where that content might have come from, is these cars trying to get out of the way of the lap traffic. The problem is the lap traffic is right there on the bottom. They're trying to do their best, it feels like, to stay on the tail end of the lead lap. That's going to hold up the leaders, and that might slow this pack down. We were kind of talking during the commercial break about these drivers in the second pack are slowly but surely gaining. With lap cars in the way, they are up to speed. The question is, though, will it slow down the lead enough for those other cars in the second pack to gain even more ground?
Yeah, you've got right there behind the Nicholas Caressel machine, you've got Jared Darling, and then you've got the 97 of Andrew Parr. He is 2 laps down, one of the drivers that got hit with a speeding penalty on the first cycle of pit stops. And that brings up another interesting question here is, when you look at a number of the drivers that ended up getting hit with the penalties, they were a bunch of drivers that were some of the first ones to come down pit road in a relatively smaller pack, about 5-6 drivers. Darling was in that group. He also got hit with a penalty. We were talking about the possibility, now that the field is spread out, of smaller packs coming to pit road for this second round. Did maybe the fact we had 5-6 wide and having to really pay attention to everybody's braking zone help that larger pack to avoid speeding? And maybe now with smaller packs, they may be in more of a perilous situation of maybe going that one tick over the 55 miles per hour.
I think so. I think that's an absolutely valid point, is that with all those cars kind of surrounding you in that big pack making their way on the pit road, it's a lot easier to kind of realize, all right, there's a lot of chaos around me right now. Everybody's trying to make their way on the pit road. I need to slow down. I don't need to be in the gas for a little bit longer than I have to. I can kind of take it easy. Whereas when you're kind of all by yourself, it's a little bit easier to give into that temptation, because you're not going to wreck somebody else if you go too fast. But again, if you go too fast, you're going to get the black flag.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Sometimes with that bigger group, you're almost just trying to make sure you're not running people over and worry about maximizing your entry to pit road. So when you're in that smaller group, you have less people to judge it off of, and that can lead to those speeding penalties like we saw in that first round of pit stops.
Russell continues to show the way. We saw just moments ago, after Jay Neiswanger had that nice save off of turn 4, saw a couple of drivers up there on the outside line, maybe trying to make some forward progress. Hunter Madalinas was up there, also the 54 of Justin Vandermarl. William, I'm going to ask you, this as a driver, I've seen in the past, when we're at super speedways, drivers make moves like that, leapfrog a car or two, basically saying that they're setting up for the pit stop, gaining whatever little bit of traction they can on the racing surface, and then try to gain some more on pit road. Is that the gamesmanship we were seeing there out of the pole sitter?
Yeah, I think it was. And I mean, that was huge for me, especially when you get single file like this. It's really easy to maybe, again, find a teammate, find a friend, and jump out into that second lane and slowly work your way up. And yeah, it's an easy way to pick some spots up. And I mean, especially when you're in a long line like this, if you're pitting from the back of that, I mean, you are really far back. And if you're not maximizing everything on pit road, there's again a great chance you're going to lose the draft there. So I think now is a good time for people to maybe get aggressive, get into that second lane, and try to jump up 5-10 spots and really give yourself a better chance to come out on the other side, in a much better position.
3 drivers took the green flag to start this race. 39 are still under power. 33 on the lead lap. We, a couple of laps ago, had our first retiree from the race, Tony Allison, who started shotgun in the field, and we saw him work his way up into the top 10. Looks like he, about 7 laps ago, brought his number 47 onto pit road and has made the left-hand turn to the garage. So tough break for him. He'll get credited for 40th position in tonight's season opener. But Jack, we're talking about now less than 7.5 miles from when these drivers can make it the rest of the way on fuel. Do we see maybe most of them come to pit road right around that target lap that Ross told us, or do we go maybe a little bit further, see what happens with those earlier pitters?
I feel like maybe we go for the latter here. I think there were a lot of drivers. I think it really depends on the strategy that some of these drivers are going for as well. I'm remembering that on the first pit stop cycle, we had a few different drivers that went with a different strategy than what we were expecting, and that kind of ended up costing them a little bit in terms of track position. So I almost wonder maybe the drivers might want to try and stretch it a little bit longer. It can allow them to pit with more cars at the same time if more drivers have that similar strategy.
Well, I'll put you on the hot seat as a driver here. We haven't seen a caution yet, but in the possibility of a yellow flag waving during these green flag pit stops, where do you want to be? You want to be that first driver to pit road, maybe cycle to the front if a caution comes out with a later pit party, or do you want to be one of those latter drivers onto pit road and see if maybe something happens with one of those earlier pit parties bringing out a yellow?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, especially when you're so close to the fuel window. I mean, I'd say if I'm one of those cars way in the back, you might not be able to cycle around and stay on the lead lap. But yeah, barring the chance of a yellow here, I think it's not a terrible idea to come in soon, get that stop out of the way, especially as long as you're good to go until the end, and maybe play it on the safer side and make some ground up and put yourself in a good spot going forward. But again, I mean, who knows? You know, it's a lot of games being played right now and a lot of different strategies. So you really don't want to hit, you know, expecting a caution, but sometimes it could just work out for you.
Something kind of interesting to note here as well. Obviously, Daytona is the season opener. There's a long season to go before we're eventually going to know our 10 playoff drivers late in August, as here comes Caressel onto pit road from the lead. The lap car of Jared Darling will join him. See if they got those cars woed down in time, as that target lap, 65, in they come. But there's a lot of drivers that were in the playoffs last season that have met some issues here tonight at the World Center of Racing that will certainly be looking to bounce back next week at Phoenix, the following week at Auto Club, trying to gain back the points they potentially may end up losing out on here in tonight's season opener.
Yeah, obviously there's still a long way to go in this season. You definitely don't want to give up hope. I mean, obviously you'd like to start it off on the right foot with a win here at Daytona, but not necessarily the end-all be-alls. We have a few more cars looking like they're making their way on the pit road. I think these are some lap cars.
Oh, one of them is Eric Kemp. He's a lead lap machine, and the car behind him, I believe that might have been a lap car.
Yeah, I don't know if Eric was tight on fuel, but see, this is the situation I don't really love, pitting kind of in a real spread-out group, not too many cars, and this is really going to hurt him, especially these up-to-speed laps with hopefully being able to rejoin the rest of these guys when they come in a lap or two.
Like Kirk Gibson and Dominic Wright, a couple of Toyotas also on pit road with the Ford of Eric Kemp. We'll see how long Shake Nicewonger and company look to run here before they eventually make the dive onto pit road. Here they come. Just about, I was going to say half, but about a quarter of the lead pack coming in.
Not a whole lot of cars coming in with these guys, so that was the car that I thought was pitting earlier, was the 97 of Andrew Parr. I thought he was making his way on the pit road. That's why I was saying lap cars, but he faked us out there and stayed out for an extra lap.
Other thing I did want to mention also is just in case you do get, you know, a couple green-white checkers and run some extra laps, you want to make sure you have enough fuel for those extra laps. So you might not just be shooting to get to lap 100. Maybe you end up going to 102, 103, 104. So pitting later here could also give you that advantage.
Great point. Make sure you get that thing prepared for potential overtime. Haven't seen the caution yet. Doesn't mean we won't see it maybe a couple of times before the conclusion, depending on what happens here. Is big pack coming down pit road, this time being led in by the 54 of Justin Vandermarl. Madalina's the pole sitter in this group as well. We saw him overshoot his stall the first time. Hopefully he's able to hit his marks this time. Got Chris Heller, our duel winner, in this group, as well as Jason Duda, Elliot Henderson, as Ashton Lawson inherits the race lead. And, you know, barring a caution, though, William, this is the money stop. Robin Durr with a black flag. It gets to the point now where if you end up getting a penalty like that, if you don't get the aid of the caution, the laps have ticked away. There's not a whole lot of time to be able to mount a comeback, so you cannot afford a penalty this late in the going.
Yeah, this is huge. Absolutely no mistakes. I mean, if you're not in that lead group, you know, especially a few seconds back, you're not going to be able to catch back up. So you got to make sure you execute everything here and are able to stay with the leaders for this last 30 laps or so.
Ashton Lawson, Zachary Henry, Brent Kingcott on pit road. Here comes Aspen Martin onto pit lane as well. And this should cycle the race lead around to either Chris Heller or Elliot Henderson. You see the closing right there, and it looks like Henderson's going to be more than willing to tuck in line behind the 16. Hunter Madalinas there as well, and then here comes the group that came to pit road the lap prior than them, thundering down their back bumpers, being led by Shane Neiswanger.
Just mentioned Aspen Martin heading down pit road. He's got a black flag as well.
Up right there for the 42, too fast entering. Speeding police have been out in full force here tonight at Daytona, as again, like a grenade going off, the fragments flying around the racetrack. We've got little packs of cars here, all looking to hopefully merge back up into this lead group that right now has about 8 drivers in it. There's about 4 drivers trying to latch onto the tail end, and then you've got the trio that were on pit road just moments ago trying to get up to speed to stay with this group. King caught there on the bottom in the 5, Ashton Lawson in the 12 of Zachary Henry right up there ahead. And there's a lot of times that there's drivers that will classify as quietly consistent. We don't talk a whole lot about them, but they seem to always run up in the top 5, top 10 at these super speedways, maintain that track position. Zachary Henry has been one of those drivers. There's no sponsorship on that car. I don't know if he's going stealth mode, but he certainly has seemed to be doing that here tonight.
Absolutely. I think it's a really nicely designed car anyway, even though there's a lack of sponsors on it. I like the paint scheme he's got going on there, and yeah, he's been pretty consistently running up inside this top 10 here, so this is a good spot for him to be in at this portion of the race, and it's only a matter of consistency. Can he keep that going, and can he stay out of the way of the slower car for the moment too? They had to take it 3 wide to get around him, but yeah, he's been running really well inside this top pack here, and he can maintain what he's been doing over the course of the race. He might catch us all by surprise.
Yeah, Zach's a teammate of mine, and it seems like, especially at these type of races, he always does so well to find himself up near the front towards the end of these things.
So after that cycle of pit stops, looks like the last time these drivers had to make the dive onto pit road. Should be good to make it the rest of the way on fuel, at least in regulation, as Williams said. Hopefully they got enough in the tank in preparation for any number of overtime green-white checkers that we may have, depending on what happens in these final 30 laps. But Nicholas Carreso back out in front. He's got the lap car of Jared Darling between himself and second place. Actually now side by side with that lap car is Tony Mongi in the 24. And I think it's safe to say now, William, this is where business starts to pick up. We've got the insurance in the tank. We've got the track position. Now we're going to start racing for the victory even 30 laps out.
Oh yeah, it's go time. As you can already see, those pushes start to really ramp up. I think it's Tony Mongi in the outside lane taking the lead. I mean, yeah, this is go time. I mean, at least it's a smaller pack, so it should be a little easier for some of these guys to work their way up. But you really want to put yourself in the best position, especially if caution is going to come out, or there's an incident maybe, you know, in the middle of this pack. You want to try to be in front of it, or maybe some people still are hanging in the back waiting for something to happen.
A lot of movement in this pack here. Drivers getting a little more anxious to push, to shove. Saw a lot of daylight between the front and back bumpers the first half of this race, but now Jared Duda up there on that top side. He's got a lap car behind him in the form of Daniel Selway. We kind of have the race within the race here. Not only is there the race for the lead, but there's also the race for the lucky dog. You've got Selway up here, Jared Darling fighting to be that first car 1 lap down. So not only are they battling amongst each other, but they're also kind of the proverbial X factors and maybe helping to push one of these lead lap cars up to the race lead.
And you just never know when the caution is going to come out, and these guys want to be in front when that moment happens. I mean, that's kind of the case with the leaders anyway, because, you know, as you get to the end of the race, to begin in the late stages of it, you know, if the caution were to fly in the last lap, then I'm pretty sure it would give the leader the race win at that point. So it's kind of the same deal over the course of where we are in terms of being still a handful of laps away from seeing the checkered flag. I mean, obviously these cars only a lap down, but as you just said, battling amongst themselves to be that first car a lap down, because you're going to get the lucky dog immediately when the yellow flag flies.
Talk about it all the time when it comes to super speedway racing. It's not about where you start, it's about where you finish. We've already documented the hard luck for Jared Darling. The early penalty has him trapped a lap down after starting this race from the outside of the front row. Leaders are just about to make their way around the 35 of Josh Morgan, that purple car on the outside line. He started this race from the outside of row number 2 after taking the checkered flag in the second duel race 1 week ago. So it really has shown that it doesn't matter if you started front, middle, or rear of the field. Daytona has found ways to trip up these drivers, and again, as I said this earlier, it's probably doubled in size now. More and more drivers are clamoring for a caution flag to come out because their window of opportunity to gain back the spots that they have lost, whether it be on the racetrack or on the pit lane, that window is closing rapidly.
On lap 75 right now, only a quarter ways to go. These lap times, this lap count is going to start ticking away quicker and quicker. Before you know it, we're only going to have about like 5 laps to go in this thing, so it's go time for sure.
13 lead lap cars in that group. 14th place we're looking at here. Gavin Fitzgerald, Eric Kemp, Justin Vandermarl. These guys, obviously, they are full throttle hammered down, William. They're currently being scored about 6 seconds behind the nearest car, the trailing car of this lead pack, Hunter Madalinas. Is there enough time to generate speed for that group to get into the conversation by the end, or they also fall into must-have a caution territory?
I mean, I think it's going to be really tough. If they want any sort of chance, they really have to maximize everything. I mean, you got to be pushing hard if you're that second car to the first car in line, and everyone's got to make sure they stay single file. If you get to racing at all in any sort of way, that's just going to slow you down. So I think it's going to be really tough from that far back. I mean, maybe these guys get to racing up here too, and it might slow them down a little bit, but if they want any chance, they got to stay in line. That second car should probably be as aggressive as he can, and maybe they have a chance to slowly eke their way back into this thing, but I think it's going to be tough with these laps starting to wind down.
Zachary Henry making the move up there to the top. He's got help, the Toyota Brent Kingcott, the Chevrolet of Ashton Lawson, and look at the momentum they've got. This helicopter cam shows you the straight line speed, how tight that draft was for just 3 cars on the outside line. Look at the surge through 3 and 4. He's going to be alongside for the lead when they come around to the start-finish line. Will the 12 of Henry.
Absolutely huge run around the outside, and I think Henry is actually going to lead this lap. Yes, he is. So a huge run for these guys, and there's another car that has shifted its way towards the top. Going to give even more momentum to Henry and Kingcott here as they'll move to the low side of the racetrack to take the race lead away. Oh, nearly contact there up on the top.
Big loose there for the 26 of Ashton Lawson, as he might have been thinking about joining Henry and Kingcott on the inside line. Was not clear on Jared Duna. Now he'll slide in just behind Tony Manchi, right across the nose of last year's champion.
Lucky that he had enough space. If he wasn't clear, that could have been a car around.
Laps continue to tick here in the Daytona 250, and we need to remind everybody as well that the system for the playoffs is not win and you're in. It's the top 10 in points at the regular season finale that will battle for the championship August 25th. The track too tough to tame, Darlington. So you gotta wonder here tonight for a lot of these drivers, are they maybe thinking bring home the steering wheel or bring home the checkered flag, or are they already in points mode? As big shove there from Caressel gives Ashton Lawson a little bit of a moment off of turn 2 down the back straightaway. What do you think, William? Are we points racing right now, or is everybody in that Andy Jankowiak mentality?
I mean, that's a great question, but I think once it gets down to the end of a race like this, especially Daytona and the season opener, I think you're just going for the win. I think that's really all you want. I mean, maybe certain people, you know, know they're going to really need the points and really want to, you know, take a good finish. I mean, it really depends where you are, but if you have a chance, you're in that top 5, you know, any sort of chance to win a race like this, I think you're going to do everything you can to get it done.
And William brings up a good point there, Jack. We saw what drivers were willing to do last week. Yes, there were points on the line of the top 10 finishers, but an opportunity to make the field for the Daytona 250, have good starting track position. We ended up seeing back in the first duel race, the long one that started from turn 2 on the final lap all the way around to the start-finish line. And that was just to make the field, make the starting lineup. Now to kick off the season with a checkered flag, These guys are going to ramp that up, maybe double, triple what they did last week as these laps continue to tick away. 20 to go.
I mean, the stakes are just even higher now that the actual checkered flag is on the line. Is Kingcott going to make his way up to the high side of the racetrack as Henry doesn't have a whole lot of help behind him. Kingcott ran a little bit wide, though. It's going to allow Henry to maintain the lead for the time being. We'll see how much of a run this outside lane gets.
I do want to note Ashton in the 26 and then Zach in the 12 leading this thing. They are teammates, so see if they try to work together here at the front.
And to your point right there, as soon as he gets clear on Henry, Lawson to the bottom. Kingcott's going to go down and cover as that bright yellow Jegs Toyota out in clean air leading this race. And going back to the moves that we're seeing here, William, how easy, how difficult would it be for that lead car to kind of do the Dale Jr. maneuver and control the different lines? Because we've seen if you can get even 2 or 3 good cars lined up, they can produce a tremendous amount of speed. I would assume that'd be really difficult to block.
Yeah, no, it's really tough. I mean, you can generate runs in these things so quick just to get 2 or 3 cars up, tucked up tight together. So I mean, you can definitely try it. I don't think it's a great idea, as it's easy to block a faster car and, a bump can go wrong. So I wouldn't really recommend it. I mean, I like to try my best with it if I'm ever up there, but sometimes the runs are just too big and it's just not worth taking the risk.
Jack, I've been keeping an eye on the lap times of that second group, 13th place on back, and they've made up a little bit of ground, but it's not much in the span of time since we last checked in with them. They're still showing 6.5 seconds back from the trailing car of this group in Shane Neiswanger. So they are definitely going to need a caution to get into this conversation. For the rest of these drivers up here, obviously you want to win this race, but the last thing you want to do as well is have a caution come out and then double the field size in competitors. You would certainly like to battle amongst yourselves 12 drivers rather than anywhere from 24 to 30 drivers that are all currently right now on the lead lap.
Certainly increases your odds of being able to win this race if the lead pack has much less drivers. One other thing, though, to keep in mind is that you've got the 1 car of Jared Darling right now a lap down. He would be in lucky dog position, so he, despite everybody else we just mentioned, he is running up in the lead pack, but with him being a lap down, he also probably wants the yellow flag to come out.
Got some fast cars up here in this group. 35 of Josh Morgan is up here in this pack. Of course, we saw the speed out of his race car winning the second duel is, up the middle. That's Kyle Cooper in the 73. No help for that lone Chevrolet, and he will quickly bail out and find himself a space in front of the 53 of Jared Duda on the inside line.
Yeah, and these Spectrum guys have done a real good job working their way to the front with Heller, Henderson, and Madalinas. Now they got 3 guys up there who are probably going to try to really look to control these lanes now and keep them up there to give themselves a good chance.
Not easy to win pole to victory at a super speedway. Madalinas trying to do just that. Heller trying to get his second checkered flag in the last week. Of course, took the checkered flag in the first duel race in last week's duels at Daytona. And Elliott Henderson trying to get that one position he was shy 1 season ago when he came up just a splitter short to Spencer Owens in the season 11 opener here at Daytona. As he'll move to the top, throws the block on Lawson. Lawson says, all right, I'll go to the bottom. We're starting to see the slicing and dicing here, closing in on 15 to go.
This is where the big moves are being made, but you've got to be extra careful because anything to bring up the caution is maybe a bit of contact. I thought for a brief moment he was going to go on the pit road there. Instead, though, it was just a little bit of contact that sent Lawson the inside of the racetrack onto the apron almost, but he managed to hold on to it. That was quite a save.
Linus in the middle, 3 wide. That, for the moment, to your point, William, kind of broke up those Spectrum teammates.
Yeah, no, it did really jumble them up. Now Hunter's stuck in the middle. Heller is now behind Henry, and then we got Elliott up here leading this outside lane. So just like that, all 3 of them now kind of got separated.
Wide again, Jared Darling, Hunter Madalinas near contact through the center of 3 and 4. Looks like Darling may fade to the rear of the field here, and that's an important battle because that purple 35 of Morgan, he's battling with Jared Darling for the lucky dog position should we get a caution. He's now into the free pass spot.
That was not a good sequence there for Jared Darling. He probably maybe got spooked by that car that went to the low side and figured it wasn't worth getting involved in an incident. Maybe tried to get up out of the way, and obviously the fading back all those positions. And to your point, another lap car of Morgan getting in his way, getting in front of him rather.
On board here with Elliott Henderson, no stranger to Daytona victory lane, has his car out in front, trying to control the respective lines as he'll now pull down in front across the nose of fellow Ford Nicholas Caressel, sees that surge on the top, moves up to block that. A little bump there through the tri-oval. That's sketchy. That's about the lightest area for a race car here at Daytona.
Yeah, of all places to have a little bit of a bump there, you do not want it to happen in the tri-oval. Anderson to the bottom.
Yeah, he is trying to do what we were just talking about and block both of those lanes. Working out well for him so far.
Seems like his strategy is go to the bottom on the entry to the corner, then drift up to the outside off the exit. At what point when you're Brent Kincott, though, do you say enough of this and maybe jump up even higher or try and maybe shoot the middle on the 37 if you get enough momentum?
Any point you can get. I mean, honestly, I'm nervous every time one of these cars goes up from the top to the bottom, or vice versa here, because they're so close to one another. If anybody makes the move a little bit too late, I can send a car going around and we'd have our first caution.
Weeks got put in an interesting position there as he almost got forced up the track by Caressel. He'll tuck in line behind fellow Toyota Brent Kincott, and look at the movement, look at the shifting side to side down the back straightaway here as we're closing up on 10 laps to go. These drivers' push has come to shove. So far, the flagman up there in the flag stand has had nothing to do outside of waving the initial green flag. These drivers have been able to now turn 90 laps under green flag conditions. We've seen the cycle twice of green flag pit stops, and now we are closing in on 10 laps to go in the big race to start the season, Daytona 250. More movement on that inside line off of turn 2. Caressel will surge the outside line to the front. Big push from Brent Kincott in the 5.
Absolutely huge push, and now I thought Caressel for a moment was going to try to work his way to the bottom, but he is not clear. Elliott Henderson on the inside trying to battle back as the 11 car is Weeks trying to force his way 3 wide. Yes, he is. That's going to take Kincott out of line.
Just like that, he can get shuffled way back.
Kincott, who is second, he's going to more than likely fall back to the 12th position. This entire pack will more than likely bypass him in that extreme outside line as Matthew Weeks says, I want to take a turn leading this outer portion, this outer lane around Daytona.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you got so much to worry about there for Brent. He's, you know, looking out in front, trying to give a good push, and maybe just get a little lazy just for a second there, and Weeks takes advantage going up the middle.
Ford's on the inside, a Toyota, a Ford, a Chevrolet on the outside. Strange bedfellows in the manufacturer department, but all with the same goal. As less than 10 to go, now we've entered into the single digits. 9 laps remain here at Daytona. Can we get it back to the white flag here? Will we see our first caution? With the movement we're seeing here, Jack, it kind of seems to me we may end up seeing our first caution of the evening here in the closing stages, and we may end up going past the regulation depending on just how aggressive the moves, the defensive blocks end up being with every lap that ticks away.
I am on the edge of my seat every time these guys try to make a move to the top or to the bottom. And again, like I talked about earlier, everyone who's making those moves has to hope that there's enough of a gap for them to be able to complete those passes that they're making. All this aggression, though, I mean, the aggression and the desperation from some drivers as well might get turned up a little bit here as lap cars are going to be in the way of the bottom. That's
James Shiflett and last season's winner here from Daytona. The 23 of Spencer Owens is on board with Caressel. Looks like those two cars gonna stay to the bottom. Does Caressel shoot the middle, or does he ride behind them here in the approach to turn 3? Nope, he'll go up top, try and make his way around them. Henderson, Madalinas will follow in tow, but with these drivers having to move up the track, that might open up the door for drivers to maybe try a third line or maybe try to catch somebody out when they clear those two cars on the bottom.
Yeah, there's probably a couple drivers that are really happy that those two lap cars chose to hold their line on the bottom of the racetrack. You don't necessarily have to move up to the high side of the track when you're a lap down. You're more than allowed to hold your position on the bottom, and that kind of forces the leaders to rethink their strategy a little bit.
Top 4 going to get themselves clear of the two machines on the bottom line, Shiplet and Owens. Heller will do the same. And then you've got the lap machine up there. That's the 91. Daniel Selway still trying to keep himself in the conversation for the free pass. The tri-oval, 6 laps to go here at Daytona. Caressel still out in front. Will, how many eyes he got out the windshield right now?
Oh, you got eyes looking everywhere. And again, this is where every move is so critical. So you got to be paying attention to what's going on in front of you, but of course, what's going on behind you. You see the second lane starting to work its way back up. So this is an instance, do you want to block? You want to stay where you are, as we see 3 cars move up and block that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this is, again, you have to be keeping an eye in front of you, behind you, left, right. I mean, every move here is going to be so important from the 5 left to the right.
Hunter Madalinas leading that trio of drivers to the top. You were talking about down the back straightaway, Zachary Henry, Christopher Heller, and it's going to pay dividends. Hunter Madalinas now to the point out in front with 5 laps to go at Daytona. Clear of both lanes, and looks like, at least for the moment, going to stay committed to that outside line. 3 wide middle of the pack. Kingcott again shuffled up to that 3rd lane with Weeks in the middle and Cooper on the bottom. Frank Kingcott has not been able to catch a break. They keep moving him up there to that 3rd lane. 2nd time he'll drift to the back.
And I feel like that time he just hit the wall through that last set of turns as well, so that's really going to hurt him as he got another move for the lead on the bottom. Henry going to try and take the race lead now. Much of a push on the bottom, though, as there is on the top. As I say that, though, here comes the 40 car right behind him. Only 4 to go this time by.
Venus continuing to show the way. Henry to the left rear quarter panel of Heller. Now Heller clear into 2nd place. Ford's up on the top. A Chevrolet leading on the inside line. And look at Shane Neiswanger. We saw him gain a ton of track position after the cycle of the first pit stops. He's up here now, clear into the 3rd position. Don't count the 49 out.
There is plenty of room right now on the bottom of the racetrack. If any of these guys want to try and make a move, if the bottom gets a run, maybe jump out of line and try to make the move to the front of the pack on the bottom side, but it's going to have to happen soon as the 40 car, is he pitting?
Oh,
He's pitting.
oh, a couple.
Got more drivers with him. Owens, Shiplet, Jared Darling. Can these drivers not make it? Most, if not all of these drivers reached that target lap of 65. Did they not get the cars completely full of fuel, or can nobody make it the rest of the scheduled distance?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to wonder. They're probably maybe saving a little fuel for those first couple of runs. Now going hard, maybe a couple people just misjudged how much fuel they would need, and left a couple laps short.
Russell led a good portion of this run, so he didn't have necessarily the benefit of draft to be able to save fuel. Finds himself about 3.5 laps short of reaching the completion of lap 100 as 5 miles stand between Hunter Madalinas and a Daytona 250 victory. Heller right there, Neiswanger, Henry, Henderson's in the mix, Matthew Weeks as well up in this lead group. It's going to come down between 11 drivers.
Henry got a heck of a run on the bottom, but there's the move by Heller to the inside.
And Henry pulls right up to the back bumper, so very nicely timed there by the Bass Pro Shops Ford Mustang. They'll be side by side off of 4. Look at the third line forming. That's Tony Mangi up there with the 53 of Jared Duda. They're leading each other through the tri-oval. Cooper got up into, I think that was Ashton Lawson. Somehow they're all pointed in the right direction. We've taken the white.
I have no idea how they saved it. That was incredible. That could have been our first caution, but now here comes the 49 into the inside.
Shane Neiswanger to the bottom. Madalinas on the top. Gridlocked here. Big push from Weeks on that top side. 49 got squirrely. Top 2 clear. It's Madalinas versus Weeks. These two duked it out for the championship 1 season ago. Now they're battling for the first checkered flag of season 12. Can Madalinas get any kind of a run off of 4? No help in the back. Hunter Madalinas, hole to win for driver number 7. He'll take the Daytona 250 here at the World Center of Racing. And look at the battling back here for 13th on back coming to the checkers. Every point, every position matters.
As soon as you take the white flag and you feel like, or you know you're not in the lead pack, you're not really being given a chance to win this race, that's when you really start point racing. That's when you say, okay, I can at least rescue the best position possible and get whatever the best possible start to the season that I can. But how about Madalinas? And how about this field as a whole? A caution-free race at Daytona.
Incredible.
That's something you don't see every day.
Yeah, no, really impressive, especially even on that last lap to not really have any incidents at all. I didn't see any. Great job by these guys.
We had 4 cautions in last season's race, and that race was only 83 laps long. 100 laps here tonight. Green flag the entire way. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I kind of felt like we were watching the Rolex 24 conclusion there with those different packs coming to the start-finish line. We saw the battle for the lead, the battle for 13th, and the battle for 18th.
If it's possible, I would love to, once we're done watching this burnout here, go back and take a look at what happened at the end of the race, because that was so close to being our first caution right at the stripe for the white flag lap, but those drivers just barely managed to save those race cars.
I think they might have been 4 wide crossing the start-finish line to take the white flag there. And it all happened in the rearview mirror of Hunter Madalinas. It started last week in Speedweeks, laid down the lap time that started him from the pole position here this evening. He didn't dominate this race, but he got himself back to the point when it mattered the most and was able to keep the thundering herd at bay. Matthew Weeks pretty much had no choice but to ride in second place. The energy behind him just wasn't there to make a move. And these two drivers who last season found themselves closing out the year first and second in points, find themselves nose to tail off of turn 4 on the final lap, could be a precursor to what we're going to see, the rekindling of the rivalry of those two from season 11 into season 12. Look at this. How was this not a wreck?
2 cars that were turned almost sideways. One of those cars ended up going through the grass, all kinds of contact. To your point earlier, Seth, they were 4 wide as they crossed the stripe, but everybody just managed to have the skill to hold on to it. I'm honestly, that was so impressive from all those guys. That just shows you, that's a testament to how good these drivers are.
3 of those drivers in that vicinity. The contact there between Kyle Cooper, Ashton Lawson, Brent Kingcock kind of got held up by it. There you see him going by in the 5. They all still managed to finish this race under power, 10th through 12th. So the what could have been for the victory still going to be a solid points day for all 3 of those drivers. And take a look at this down the back straightaway. After Matthew Weeks get cleared, it just kind of seems like maybe the 24 of Mangi, the 49 of Neiswanger draft each other back, and there's nobody to get up there and give the push necessary for Weeks to make the move off of 4.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious as to what happened from the 49. We might hear it from Shane after the race while we're talking to him, but yeah, he kind of seemed to be the one that slowed up there while they were on the backstretch, and when he lost that push, that kind of took away all the closest competition to trying to challenge Madalinas for the win, and so we'll ultimately the 7 car able to hang on late. No move made by Matthew Weeks.
Talk about the tale of two races for our podium finishers. Madalinas finishes where he starts. Matthew Weeks will end up finishing 31 positions better than where he rolled off the grid, 29 positions better for Shane Nicewanger. So different areas of the field and able to ultimately bring it home on the podium to finish out the first race of the season. Let's see if we can dial up those podium drivers. Let's get a hold of the guy that just barely was able to hang on to third place. A close battle between him and the 24 coming to the checkered flag, Shane Nicewanger. Shane, you got a copy as the guys up here in the split-second broadcasting booth.
I do. How are you guys?
Well, I'll tell you what, it certainly looked like after the first cycle of green flag pit stops, we got to see just how strong this 49 car was, never faded out of the lead pack. And in the conversation for this victory, we saw you there with that chain bumping down the back straightaway, maybe a little stalled out there through 3 and 4. Was there anything you could have done differently to get up there with the 7, with the 11, maybe be able to make a move off of turn 4 and have this 49 parked in victory lane?
No, I made that move too early. I think I was worried about coming out of 2. If Heller got beside me, that would be my only chance to make the move for the win. And when I made that move, he sort of stalled a little bit. He got separated from me. And that was enough to get me beside the 7, but not clear. If I could have cleared him, I think it's a different story. But it's one of those deals that it's Daytona. You got to take that chance.
One thing we saw here with the field getting broken up, the different cycles of green flag pit stops, obviously the moves being made and teammates, manufacturer alliances getting split up, how difficult did that make it to try and plan out those moves in the closing stages, maybe not knowing if you were going to have somebody to go with you?
Yeah, I think with all the fuel saving going on in this race, it didn't seem like the teams could stick together as well. I know for Dark Horse, we had people all over the field. Brittle had an issue at the beginning. He got separated, and then due to the fact we never had a yellow, he never had a chance to catch up. For myself, I just came into this race. I wanted to be, at very least, at the back of the leading pack, and I was able to do that in the first run. There was a little incident. We got broken up. We caught back up. And then that second pit stop, I mean, they were guys that were leading were really saving a lot of fuel. So me and I know Matt Durr was behind me and a few other guys, we wanted to get some TV time there in the middle of the race. So that's how I ended up in the lead. And me leading, it didn't really seem to hurt my fuel numbers too bad. I just had to do a little bit extra work for the final run. That's why I didn't really move up. I expected a wreck at some point. It never happened, so I waited till 5 to go, and things sort of fell my way where I could sneak up through the pack of 12, 15 cars and wind up where I was for the end and at least had a shot. So I can't be mad at that.
Yeah, we talked about the testament to the talent of you drivers tonight. The fact we ran 100 circuits here at an unpredictable super speedway and did not see the caution once. Obviously, I know you would have liked to start out the season with a victory, but when you're able to leave a track like Daytona where you never know exactly what's going to happen between the initial green flag and the checkers, to come out of here with a third place performance, what does this do as far as setting the tone for the 49 car for the remainder of the regular season?
Yeah, you're not trying to dig a hole the rest of the regular season. You're not trying to dig out of that hole. I'm sorry. And I mean, you guys saw the duels. It could have went the same way. Coming into turn 3, I had a shot to win that first duel. And a bad block cost me there. So that always can happen when you're at Daytona. Just very fortunate to get out of here with third place. Take some points with me, and then I can go to Phoenix, and instead of digging out of that hole, I can try to string together some more good finishes and really sort of give myself a cushion for the playoff cut line.
Coming out with some valuable points. Spent some time out in front here tonight at Daytona as well, and able to bring it home on the podium in tonight's season opener. Shane, congratulations on a great start to season 12. We'll now give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank my dad. He's over in the living room watching the race. So shout out to him. I want to thank all the drivers that participated in this race from top to bottom. That's one of the best races that we've had at a super speedway. in GLR in the almost 6 years that we've been running this league. So shout out to all of them tonight. Everybody did a great job. Thank you guys for the broadcast. I'm sure it was great as always. I'll go and check it out tomorrow. And everybody at Dark Horse. I know some of us, it wasn't the finish we wanted, but I think there's the way last season ended, I think there's a lot to build on and be excited for this season.
Absolutely. Well, Shane, once again, congratulations on the solid outing here tonight, Daytona. Best of luck going forward next week in the desert at Phoenix, the rest of the regular season.
Thank you, guys.
Shane Niswong are going to be the highest finishing of the Chevrolets here tonight. Pretty democratic, the manufacturers on the podium, as we'll now get ready to dial up the highest finishing Toyota driver here this evening, last season's champion, Matthew Weeks.
Yeah,
Hey, Matthew, it's the guys up here in the split-second broadcasting booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got you.
Man, I'll tell you what, it kind of seemed like once we got around, 10, 15 to go, seemed like it was go time for this 11 machine. We saw you shoot up the middle, try and cut through the field, eventually got yourself up there into the second position on the final lap, but then you got into 3, you're behind the 7, just wasn't any help out the back. Could you just not generate a run to be able to get around him there?
No, I couldn't do anything. Once we cleared, we moved down. I looked in my mirror, and those guys are still side by side drafting, so that killed their momentum. And then I think Hunter had some of the lap car draft too, so literally I couldn't do anything.
Started this race from the 33rd position, deep in the field. You methodically, slowly worked your way up through, able to bring it home in second place. It's tough enough to be able to do that in a race that's riddled with cautions, trying to figure out when the time to go is and when not. But in a race that went 100 laps, green flags, some pit stops in between as well, how difficult was it to kind of strategize when the time to move forward was?
It was kind of hard because you had to save like a lap or two each run too. So like that first run, I think the first 10 laps I was just riding, trying to figure things out. I think I stayed in like 30th forever, and then there was a big checkup where we almost had a wreck, and that jumped me up to like 20th, and I rode right there, and then about halfway through that, I think lap 20, I was like, you know what, let's just go get some track position. So I just worked my way up, and then that first green flag stop actually slid my box a little bit. So I was surprised I was able to keep with the lead pack and stay like 12th or something when we had that gap with the guys 13th on back on that second run. And then right there, really, I was just trying to stay up there. And then I was talking some crap on the radio because they were losing so much time. And I was trying to encourage those guys, let's go, let's gap the guys behind us. And I forget, someone said something. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's show these guys how to plate race. And that was my mentality. Let's go to the front, stay in the front. And then that last run, I was real close on fuel. I think I come out of pit road and I was 2 laps short. So I was trying to save, and I saved until about lap 88. And then that's when you notice I kind of really pushed hard to get to the front. And then it went back to half a lap short. Then I went back to saving a little bit. And then once I was like right on the money, we were there. And I just, like I said, I just couldn't get the momentum once I was behind Hunter to really make a move, and I think I actually ran out of gas as soon as I crossed the line. So, but it's good to finish the season with a strong, start the season with a strong finish with points and everything. So usually I finish like 30th at Daytona and get caught in a wreck. So this is good.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because I was going to mention the fact that last season we saw you take the championship and you kicked off the season with a top 5 here at Daytona, brought it home in 4th. So another good run here at Daytona one season later in the runner-up position. What do you think this does in maybe setting the tone for back-to-back championships here in the Premier Series?
I feel strong about it. Especially when they made the announcement of changing the car. I'm way better with this car than any other, the truck or the cup car. I really have a knack for this car. And then I think we did an off-season showdown series, like not last season, but the season before, and I won that championship with this car. So I feel confident that we can go back to back. I feel good. I'm glad to get away from this style to go to some real tracks where we actually got a race and try to get some wins. I wanna win more than 5 races. I think that's my goal. Try to break that.
I was going to say, if Matthew Weeksfield is saying that he's more comfortable in the O'Reilly car than he is in a truck, which he put in victory lane 5 times last season. Look out, we might be looking maybe at a double-digit win season. Who knows? But Matthew, congratulations on a great run here tonight. A great solid way to kick off season 12. We'll now give it the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Shout out to you guys, man. You guys do it great on the broadcast. I mean, I watched these races. I still watch the truck races. I watch the other stuff y'all broadcast, like the 03 series y'all do sometimes. I watch that. I mean, you guys do great. This league, man. I think it was Zach Henry and Chris Heller who brought me here a couple seasons ago, and I have had a blast racing this league. It's always good racing, green flag racing. I just I've enjoyed it so much that I've actually brought the team I race for in like my main league. The I brought Pro Edge over here, and I brought some buddies. You know, Justin Vandermeer. Trey wasn't here this weekend. He was away last weekend, so he couldn't try to qualify. He'll show up next week. Trey, Kurt, Dom, and then Corey. I think Dom's like part time, but it's cool to actually bring a team I've been affiliated with for years, like even on my console dates 10 15 years ago now in iRacing. So, and to bring these guys over and show those guys what this league is like. And I think Justin's ran a couple races last season in the truck. I think Kurt did the same, and I'm glad they joined. So shout out those guys. I think Justin had a good finish. Kurt had a couple of mistakes on pit road, sliding the box a little bit, but we showed out good tonight, and that's good for us. And shout out to Hunter too. I mean, he got a win, and he's usually one of the strongest competitors in here. So I could tell it's going to be one of those seasons we're probably going to be swinging at each other every single week for the point lead. I feel like so. And all the sponsors that's a part of this, everyone that's part of the league, man, it's a great league. I really can't stop bragging about it. It's so fun.
We got treated to an epic here tonight at Daytona. Congratulations on the runner-up finish here this evening. Best of luck the remainder of this regular season. Continuing next week in the desert of Avondale next week at the Phoenix International Raceway. And congratulations on a solid outing here in the season opener at the World Center of Racing.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Oh, and I forgot to say, shout out to my buddy Justin Vandermeer at JV Designs. He paints all the beautiful schemes you see. He brought me the silver one. Hit him up if you need a paint scheme at JV Designs on Twitter.
There you go. That's Matthew Weeks. He's your runner-up finisher here tonight in the season opener at Daytona. And let's head down to Victory Lane and dial up tonight's race winner. Coast to coast, pole to win, Hunter Madalinas, the winner of the Daytona 250. Hunter, it's the guys up here in the split-second broadcasting booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got you guys.
First off, congratulations on the victory. Secondly, congratulations on making Premier Series history. First driver to repeat in the season opener at Daytona. You took the checkered flag back here in season 8. You do it here tonight in season 12 from the pole position. Sounds simple, but we saw that you had an adventurous night, had to work your way from mid-pack back up to the front of the field and put yourself in the right place at the right time. Describe to me what the adventure was like, caution-free for 100 laps. How difficult did that make it to strategize and put yourself back where you started this race?
Yeah, obviously, first pit stop, I came in, I think it was like 4th or 5th. Had issues, first pit stop of the year. We don't really practice pit stops. We didn't really practice them in the duels last week. And in practice, even when we did practice it, it wasn't on really old tires. So just went into my box that first time and was just way too slick. Locked up the tires and just got it too far left. So I had to move over to get it into the stall. So that cost us a little bit of track position. But, after, I was out from up front, it was just kind of, how much fuel could I save that second run, so that way on that third run I could do the exact same and not have to worry about fuel those last couple laps. And yeah, once me, Elliot, and Chris were green light to go for it, we all three jumped to the top, went for track position, and then once we got to the lead, it was all fight on our own.
You talked about that number 1 pit stall, and you were able to stay up in the lead pack even after the green flag pit stop cycles the entire race. Is it outside the realm of possibility to say that last week's flyer lap that got you the pole position played a huge part into you being in victory lane here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, that number 1 pit stall is always a very important thing. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those, I heard y'all talking about it last week. It's one of those stalls that, you always know where that stall is at. So, it's really easy also coming onto pit road. I can judge myself to go turn out a little bit later, so everyone ducks to the inside, gets to as close to the inside wall as they can, and I can stay out towards the yellow line and kind of stay out of harm's way if anything happens on the inside. But I know every time, my box is always that first one, so it's kind of out of the way, and I don't have the issues of being in other people's way as they're trying to get into their stall if I just stay to that right hand side.
We talk about super speedway racing, how there's an art to this style. And in the previous races you've run here in the Premier Series, you now, with this victory lead, all drivers at this track with your third overall checkered flag. What is it about this racetrack or this style of racing you've been able to figure out to not only finish at the front, but keep yourself there the entirety of the event?
Yeah, it honestly comes down to teamwork, and then right at the end, it's just knowing what lines to manage. Knowing what runs are generating, knowing you gotta think multiple steps ahead before it even gets to that point. So that whole last lap, I had to determine, even if Shane dumped to the bottom, I could side draft him. It forced Weeks into pushing me. I was judging how close we were to the lap cars that I could get the draft going into 3 and 4. So it really is just you gotta work in your head. You just got to be a couple steps ahead of where you are on track. And for some reason I'm able to do that. Not at Dega, but for some reason here, maybe just because other people can't throw these 3 wide moves that kind of shuffle people out. But it's just you got to think one step ahead.
Well, able to get the job done here tonight at Daytona, picking up the victory. First repeat winner in the season opener here in the Premier Series and doing it from the pole position. A great way to kick off season 12 for you heading into Phoenix, which is another track that you've got a victory previously here in the Premier Series. So some great momentum to kick off this brand new season, Hunter. We'll let you get back to your celebrating here in just a moment, but before we do, we'll give it the opportunity for some victory lane thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Yeah, just thank you to everyone in the league. Everyone raced really amazingly. You know, green flag start to finish is something incredible, especially for Daytona. Even with how aggressive we were getting at the end there, still not to wreck. Thanks to everyone at Spectrum. Great teamwork we had today. Elliot, I think, finished top 10. Same with Chris, and I think he finished top 5. So just an all good out day all around from the team. And thank you guys for putting on amazing broadcasts each week.
Hunter Madalinas, he's your winner here tonight, the Daytona 250 at the Daytona International Speedway. Congratulations once again on your pole to victory here in the season opener. Best of luck here the remainder of the season.
Thanks, Seth.
What an incredible night here in Daytona. 100 laps of green flag racing, Jack. I mean, I think that what we heard there from Madalinas, they hadn't even really prepared themselves for pit stops during practice. I don't think anybody in the field were necessarily prepared for the fact that they were going to have to make one, let alone two trips to pit road under green flag conditions. The fact that we saw 40 cars take the green flag and didn't even see a single yellow, does that maybe set the tone for the fact that a lot of these drivers now going to have to zone in for green flag racing going forward?
It means you should be a little bit prepared for it at the very least, or I guess better prepared is what I should say, because obviously nobody ever goes to a racetrack like Daytona and expects to run the entire thing from start to finish without a caution. I don't know. We're obviously not going to have the same thing happen as we continue on with this series over the next several weeks. So, I mean, we'll see. But I feel like this race, at the very least, better prepared these guys for those type of circumstances where they have to make those green flag pit stops. And the more you do it over the course of a season, the better it's going to prepare you.
William, obviously some challenging tracks coming up on the horizon. Phoenix next week, Auto Club in a couple weeks' time. We got Dover, Kansas, Indianapolis. I mean, a plethora of varying track configurations coming up here as the regular season continues. I mentioned about the fact that drivers had different agendas coming into this race. Now that the dust has settled and the results are basically written in stone, different drivers are going to have the different agendas now leaving Daytona going into Phoenix.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are going to have their mindsets change big time after this race. I mean, I think a lot of people went into it thinking it was going to be chaos and take it easy, stay in the back, and expect some yellows. And of course, that didn't happen. So a lot of these guys deep down in points now are going to have to get aggressive in these next couple of weeks and really run well. So, yeah, I mean, I think that really changes the game for some people. Of course, Hunter and these guys ran well, so they're got a little less pressure on them. So I think, yeah, it's really, really different for some people. But I think next week, especially, and going forward, every race is so important points wise. So it's going to ramp up for some people to dig out of this hole, especially me myself. Not even running today. These next couple weeks are going to be big for me. So I'm going to have to make sure, I'm not making any of these mistakes pit road wise or, having issues with other people to maximize points each and every week.
Here's a look at how they crossed the start-finish line to close out the first race of Season 12 of the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series. Hunter Madalinas brings it home with the victory. Pole to win. Matthew Weeks, Shane Neiswanger, well outside the top 30 in their starting positions, will complete the podium. Tony Manji will bring it home in fourth, with Jared Duda in fifth. Christopher Heller, our duel winner from the first duel race last week, sixth place for him. Zachary Henry, solid all day in seventh. Elliot Henderson, runner-up finish one season ago, will finish eighth here tonight. Ashton Lawson will finish in the ninth position, with Bren Kincott bringing it home in the 10th spot. 11th place will be Kyle Cooper. John Linday, we didn't mention him pretty much the entire evening. Solid run in 12th. Gavin Fitzgerald, who spent most of that final run heading up that second pack, will net 13th. Justin Vandermeerl in 14th and 15th for Matt Durr. Cy Jackson, James Wagner, Jackson Sims, Jeremy Pienta, and Aiden DuPont will finish out the top 20. Travis Handy brings it home in the 21st spot. Nicholas Carresso, who we saw have to pit late for fuel after he led a good portion of that final run, he'll ultimately bring it home in 22nd. Rod Fastnow was 23rd. He was the last driver to finish on the lead lap, as Daniel Selway, Josh Morgan, Eric Kempf, Aspen Martin, Dominic Wright, Robin Durr, and James Shiflett complete your top 30. A number of these drivers ended up getting hit with speeding penalties during those green flag pit stops. The rest of your field, last season's winner, Spencer Owens, brings it home a lap down in the 32nd position, with Blair Neabone, Logan Hardy, Kirk Gibson, the rest of the top 35. And then the rest of your field here tonight, Hunter Brittle, Noah Morgan, Lewis Woodall, Andrew Parr, they all reached the checkered flag. The only driver to retire from this race, Tony Allison, finishing in the 40th spot. But what a treat we had here tonight. 100 laps, green flag racing to open up the 12th season of the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series here at Daytona. Congratulations to Hunter Madalinas as he brings home the Daytona 250, powered by Split Second Broadcasting TV. We thank you all for joining us in our coverage here tonight from the World Center of Racing. Thanks to Ross Brockman for giving us his insight on pit road, William Barbadelata for joining us up here in the booth, and we will see you guys later on this season for the continued coverage of the Great Lakes Racing Premier Series. As for Jeff Johnson, Jack Mitchell, I'm Seth Cole signing off. Thanks for tuning in to another broadcast courtesy of Split Second Broadcasting.